In the heart of the Pacific Ocean lies a small island with a remarkable story, a story of conflict, sacrifice, and the search for peace. For nearly a decade, Bougainville was consumed by one of the deadliest civil wars in the Pacific since the Second World War. Thousands of lives were lost, families were torn apart, and entire communities suffered because of a conflict driven by natural resources, political power, and the desire for self-determination. This is the story of the Bougainville conflict. Bougainville is an island located east of Papua New Guinea. Although it is geographically part of Papua New Guinea, many Bougainvilleans have long considered themselves culturally and ethnically distinct from the mainland population. The conflict began in 1988 and lasted until 1998. At the center of the dispute was the Panguna copper mine, one of the largest copper mines in the world. Operated by Bougainville Copper Limited, the mine generated enormous profits for the Papua New Guinea government and foreign investors. However, many local communities believed they received very little benefit from the mining activities. Instead, they experienced environmental destruction, polluted rivers, damaged forests, and the loss of traditional lands that had supported generations of families. As frustration grew, tensions between local communities and the government continued to rise. The situation reached a breaking point when local resistance groups began sabotaging mining facilities in protest against the unequal distribution of wealth and environmental damage. In response, the Papua New Guinea government deployed military forces to suppress the rebellion. What began as protests quickly escalated into a full-scale civil war. Roads were destroyed, villages were burned, essential supplies became scarce as economic blockades isolated the island. Many civilians found themselves trapped between government forces and the Bougainville Revolutionary Army, commonly known as the BRA. By the end of the conflict, it is estimated that between 15,000 and 20,000 people had lost their lives, making it one of the deadliest conflicts in the Pacific region during the late 20th century, 220 to 320. Understanding both sides. The Papua New Guinea government argued that Bougainville was a legitimate part of the country following independence from Australia in 1975. Government leaders feared that allowing Bougainville to become independent would encourage other provinces to demand separation, threatening national unity. They also considered the Panguna mine essential to the country's economy because it generated a significant share of government revenue and export earnings. Meanwhile, the Bougainville Revolutionary Army viewed the conflict very differently. They believed that their people had been politically marginalized and economically exploited. They argued that Bougainville's natural resources should belong to its own people, and that local communities deserved greater control over their future. Many Bougainvillians also believed they possessed a unique cultural identity that justified their demand for independence. After years of violence, both sides gradually recognized that military force alone could not resolve the conflict. Peace negotiations eventually replaced armed confrontation. International mediation played a crucial role in helping rebuild trust between the opposing sides. New Zealand hosted important peace talks at Burnham, while Australia supported diplomatic efforts and later contributed to peace monitoring operations. Several ceasefire agreements were signed, reducing violence and allowing humanitarian assistance to reach affected communities. These negotiations laid the foundation for lasting peace and opened the door to a political solution rather than continued warfare. A major breakthrough came in 2001 with the signing of the Bougainville Peace Agreement. The agreement granted Bougainville greater political autonomy, established a weapons disposal program, and promised a future referendum on independence. Nearly 2 decades later, in 2019, the people of Bougainville finally had the opportunity to vote. Approximately 97% of voters supported independence from Papua New Guinea. Although the referendum demonstrated overwhelming public support, its outcome is not legally binding. Final independence continues to depend on negotiations between the governments of Bougainville and Papua New Guinea. Today, Bougainville remains an autonomous region within Papua New Guinea while discussions about full independence continue. Despite ongoing political negotiations, the violence that once devastated the island has largely ended. Both sides remain committed to resolving their differences through diplomacy rather than conflict. The Bougainville conflict offers important lessons for the international community. It reminds us that economic inequality, environmental damage, and political exclusion can lead to violent conflict. At the same time, it demonstrates that peace is possible through dialogue, compromise, international cooperation, and respect for the voices of local communities. The story of Bougainville is more than the history of a civil war. It is a powerful example of resilience, reconciliation, and the enduring hope for a peaceful future.